Hey, I'm GQ, and this is my family tree story. So, on my mother's side, my mother was born in Chicago. Her mother was born in Chicago. Her mother's mother was born in Chicago, and her mother's mother's mother was born in Chicago. My mother's father, my grandfather, was born in Rebdorf, Germany, or Rebdorf, Germany, which is in Eichstätt, which is outside of Munich, in the south of Germany. His parents were also born in Germany. I'm not sure when and where. So my grandfather on my mother's side was born in 1904 in Rebdorf, Germany, and he was he worked for a wagon maker. The title was wagon maker, but they made things out of wood, wagons, skis, maybe, I don't know, cabinetry or other kinds of woodworking. And I believe that he came to Chicago in order to find work. This was in 1925 when he was 21 years old. I for a while I thought, like, in my mind, I thought he left Germany because he didn't want to be a part of what was happening there with the rise of Hitler and the Nazi parties takeover of the government. But that wasn't until 1933. So I think I made that up because I picture him as like this great hero, because he is a great hero to me. But what I found out is that he came for work. He needed money. He needed work. So, there was a chance he was going to go to South America. Somehow he didn't go to South America. He went to Chicago, which is where he met my grandmother. So my grandma, as I said, was born in Chicago. Her mother's mother was born in Chicago, and her mother's, I think I'm like 5 generations deep on my mother's side, born and raised in Chicago. My mom said she remembers my grandma talking about her grandparents, talking about the Chicago fire in 1871 when they had to evacuate their house. So let's see. They settled on the north side of Chicago at Richmond and Addison, not far from Wrigley Field. And that's where my mom grew up, and then I grew up at the house that they moved to, which was Costner and Irving in Old Irving Park. So that's where I spent the first 5 years of my life in Chicago. But it's not my time yet. I got to take you to my father's side. So my father's father was born in Doraji, India. Doraji is in the state of Gujarat, which is on the western coast of India. My father's mother was also born in Doraji. And as far as I know, their parents were also born in Doraji. So, but my grandmother's, my father's mother, who was born in Doraji, and that's also where my dad was born, Doraji, India. So my grandmother on his side had some land in Burma, which is today's Myanmar, which is where all the Muslim genocide has been going on, and when there's a lot of civil unrest right now, that is the land where in the city of Rangoon, where my dadima, my grandmother on my father's side, she grew up for some time there. I think her father and her uncle were farmers there. When and they must have lived there also when sometime before my dad was born. His older brother was born in Burma. So my dad was born in Daraji, and in 1947, he was born in 1946. In 1947, there was the partition of India, when Pakistan was formed, and when the divisions were formed between Sikhs and Hindus and Muslims, and the Muslims all went, or most of them went to Pakistan. So my dad was about 4 years old. That was in, I want to say like 49 or 50 when his family moved to Pakistan. So my dad was raised in Karachi. And when he was 18, he came in 1964, he came to the United States, and he came to Chicago, which is where he met my mother. So my mom was a nurse, was studying to be a nurse at the University of Chicago, and at St. Joseph's Hospital, and my dad was a pharmacist at St. Joseph's Hospital. And my mom and dad met when my father he was 3 years older than my mother, right? So he was a senior, or he was at the point of being a pharmacist, or like a pharmacist in residence, I guess. He had studied for a while at the University of Illinois, Circle campus in Chicago. And when he was running the pharmacy in the hospital, or he was working at the pharmacy in the hospital, my mom started to study nursing, and they were getting a tour of the different branches of the hospital. So my dad was asked to introduce all the nurses to the pharmaceutical department, right? So he had to give a speech. My mom was sitting in the front row, and apparently she wouldn't take her eyes off him. And I mean, that's his side of it. No, that's also her side of it. So he got nervous, and he had a hard time speaking in front of all these nurses. My mom ended up having to visit the pharmacy on like part of her nursing duties, and she asked, and my father asked her out, and they went to a party, and blah, blah, blah. I'm now the middle of 3 sons that they had. And I was born in 1976 in Chicago, born and raised in Chicago. And, I often think of what it was like in the 60s when my father, who was, a Muslim born in India, raised in Pakistan, living in Chicago, and becoming part of my mother's family, my mother's German family in Chicago, with 4 brothers and 4 boys and 2 girls. All the boys went into the military, like all very Catholic. So this white Catholic German family on the north side of Chicago takes in this brown Muslim Indo-Pak pharmacist who gets like embedded in German culture, and he loves German culture, and he learns about German beer and German medicine, and ends up being a pharmacist that gets sick of counting pills for a living, and through a series of miraculous events ends up purchasing a German pharmacy called Merz Apotheke, Merz Apothecary, from the third generation Merz family members that were going to shut it down forever. He ends up buying that pharmacy, learning all about homeopathic and holistic remedies, and ends up embracing that and then innovating that pharmacy into Merz Apothecary in Chicago today, which is a 150-year-old business and a Chicago landmark. And I grew up working there with my brothers. My older brother runs that business now. I sometimes step in to help unload packages, but you know, I ended up migrating to Los Angeles, to New York first, then to Los Angeles. I find myself back in Chicago more now than I have been in 20 years. And so I'm often these days faced with the memories and also the questions of my heritage and my roots. You know, I'm very, very glad to be from where I am, very glad to be from Chicago. These days I see it in a light that I did not see it as when I was growing up. And you know, Chicago is a very segregated city. I grew up in a part of it that was very white, yet my dad was darker than a lot of Black people that I know. And so it was crazy. You know, it's crazy to think about this family that took my dad in. And then I asked my parents about it, and in the 60s when they were together, kind of looks they would get, the kind of things they would have to deal with as a mixed couple, as a mixed kid. I grew up within blurry lines. Sometimes I didn't realize that I wasn't white. Other times I wasn't treated like I was white, and I definitely realized then I wasn't. But I still kind of was. You know, that there wasn't a term. People didn't say mixed kid when I was a kid. So I'm glad now that I can at least say, I can say that, and be very proud of that. I like mixing things up. So I'm a mixed product. I'm not a product, but I'm mixed, and I love it. And Chicago is a mixed up place. The world is a mixed up place, and the more mixed up, the more better. And that is my family tree story. I am really grateful that you all are a part of it.